Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to All Things New MCPs for 2023 instructional session. Moving forward, this is going to be the way that you can differentiate various trainings, as we'll call it All Things New MCP, and then the year, this being 2023, so you'll know which cycle that we happen to be in for this particular instructional session. As many of you know, my name is Brian Kletka, and I represent the Broward MPO and manage the Surtax Services contract with MAP Administration and Broward County. This surtax is a blessing for our community, and as you will see, it is evolving to something more inclusive and better. Today, you will learn many things, and I hope in the end, you'll like what you heard today. Thank you for joining us today. In our line of work, time is precious. At the very end of the question period, we have time for question and answers. We ask that you type your questions into the chat, so that way we can keep a record and make sure that we answer all the questions that you have before you leave today. And we also, as a team, remain available to you anytime a question pops in your mind, 24/7. We're here for you. Our goal is to always get back with you within 24 hours. I have two awesome teammates here today, Todd Brower and Rodney Bunner, and I will now turn it over to Todd to kick us off for the afternoon. Todd?
Excellent. Thank you, Brian. All right, let me activate this. Wonderful. Well, before we get started, though, there's a couple things that we do before any training session with you all, and we appreciate the fact that you register, that you give us the information, because we always like to ask a series of questions. Have you been involved in this process before? Have you been involved in a training session? What are some suggestions? What are your expectations for the training itself? So up here, I put together a summary of some of the needs that you've identified as part of your registration. And for the most part, they fit very nicely with what are the main goals of what our training are here today. Because what you're going to see today is I'm not only going to show you some of the new resources that we have available to you, or really where you can get to those resources, because as Brian had said, this is an ever-evolving process, but it's maturing to the point where we're now really just polishing the edges of the program. We're not necessarily having to kind of rethink how we do the process. So there are going to be a few things that you see new today, but for the most part, it's really polishing the understanding that we've gained from the Second Amendment and really being able to move forward to get this process working. Last year was the first year that we were able to recommend new MCPs, those that were not part of Cycle 1. So that was actually very exciting for us. So we were able to build on all of the comments that you made last year, working with you, things that will help your process to put together your applications, understanding the ranking and evaluation process together. So all of those things are coming together as this first session, which is really about how do you put together your applications and make sure that we have everything so that way we can put them through the evaluation process. So everything in bold there are really one of the key aspects that we have. If it's not bolded, it typically means that we're waiting for something, or we just don't have the information yet. And one of those questions was how much funding will be available in the 2023 new MCP cycle. We likely won't know that until April. So that comes from the Department of Revenue, from the state of Florida. And typically the MAP administrator doesn't get the estimate until April. And in most cases, the final number doesn't come out until July. Now, you'll see that our required date to turn in our products is June 1st, but we do work with the MAP administrator when they have that final number to basically make any tweaks to the process. We also will be meeting with the county administrator tomorrow. So there's a few things when it comes to the evaluation, ranking, and recommendation process that we're working with Monica on to make sure that we're tightening up the process a bit and making it the educational materials very clear for you, having workflows and very clear dynamics and graphics that will help you in that process. So those things will be coming out fairly shortly. You should be looking forward for those that have signed up, which I think most of you have that are attending, have signed up to our subscription where you get the latest news and you get the latest events. There will be some information coming out that after we meet with Monica tomorrow. So before we get started, I just want you to know that we heard you, we saw what you had to say, and that I'm happy to report that most of the items that you had there, again, a couple of them we can't answer, but that we're going to address as part of the event today. I always like to start with the role of the MPO. It gives you guys an idea of what the expectation is for what we do. What is our role in this process? And the big takeaway that I really want you have from this slide is that when you look at the 10% minimum annual guarantee, or the MAG that we'll refer to it, there's a lot of things that it goes to pay for other municipal programs. The MCP process is just one of them. That's a small part of the program itself. Well, I won't say a small part, but it is just one of 4 processes that you have, because there's also money set aside for contingencies. And as we're all aware, inflation's been a big issue the last couple of years, and it's something that the MAP administrator wants to continue to monitor and make sure that that's being taken care of. There's also the R&M, the rehab and maintenance MCPs that are part of the process, and then the community shuttle services. So all of those are managed by the MAP administrator from Broward County themselves. Our role is with the MCP. So it's not that we won't answer any questions that we can related to community shuttles or R&M or contingency, but that is outside our sphere of influence. So we can at least do our best to report what we've heard MAP administration, the administrator say, and then get that information to you or get you connected to them. But it gives you an idea of what our scope is. And that scope when it comes to MCPs is really 2 main objectives. It's to rank the applications, and then it's to recommend within the MAG itself. Now, all of this we need to do by June 1st annually as part of the process. And this is what I was referring to earlier, that we're meeting with Monica on Wednesday. Every year we meet with the county administrator. We go through a debrief of what we'd learned last year, go through the comments that we heard from you all. Where are some of the challenges to the program? How can we make this better? And that is called the new MPO evaluation and ranking process. And so that is approved every year. So we're meeting with her on Wednesday. So that will likely be put on our website within the week, very, very soon. But that really shows you then, so when you really are thinking about those questions, are there questions about the application, the evaluation, the ranking, and then the recommendation process? Anything outside of that, we're either flying blind, we just don't have the information, but we can at least get you connected with the MAP administrator, or it's going to be secondhand. So we always like to make sure that you are connected with the person that you need to make sure you're getting the latest and greatest information. Now, as part of that role, though, where I mentioned the new MCP E&R process, there are 7 things that the Second Amendment was very clear about what the MPO needed to do. So 3 of these are our big focus for today, is the annual evaluation of the application. So we're here to take you through multiple processes, from starting a new application to refining an application to submitting to reporting and monitoring, so you have some idea of what's happening with your projects as they progress through the process. So 2, 4, and 5 are the ones that we're really going to focus on today, because cost estimates are part of your application process. And then you're doing exactly what we need to be doing, which is the training. So we don't necessarily require you to have individual meetings, but we are open to that. And I will show you a way where you can connect with us to set up those individual meetings. But this is the playbook in which Brian and myself and Rodney and the team, we always look at to say, we know that this is our scope of work. These are the things that we need to be doing. This is our process. So this is what we always go back to, and we want to be transparent with you so you can see this is really what our objectives are. If it's to rank and recommend, this is really the recipe to get that done. So all of that leads us to today, where we see then ultimately working with you all is the teaching, the training, and the supporting through this process, particularly through the application process. And I'm excited because Rodney is going to be taking you through a number of series of how do you start a new application? How do you update them? So we're going to support you through that entire process. And again, if there's any questions, put those in the chat, and then we'll get to those. And then at the same point, we're going to record this so that way you'll always have access to be able to look back to see, yeah, how did Rodney do it? And then we can help you through that process. So I know there was a question about eligibility. I wanted to kind of bring this up because you're going to see something a little different with the application than what you'd seen last year. So although I'm dividing these up in roadway improvements and transportation improvements, I'm primarily doing that because the other transportation improvements in some cases have additional eligibility requirements and funding restrictions attached to them. So you'll see drainage, fiber optics, landscaping, sound walls. There's other things that the applicant is going to need to provide in the application process for those to go forward. Last year was also a year where we worked with many of you on traffic calming projects. So I wanted you to see all the options in the application of what is considered a traffic calming project. So we'd worked with the map administrator. We were drawing information from ITE, the International Engineering Group, as well as USDOT and guidance that they had given to get these together. I also want to point out too that if you're looking at a new roadway or bridge, in some cases that may be considered a complete rebuild of it. Now that's going to have to go through a preliminary eligibility assessment, and I think that will be defined a little further out. So we'll definitely want to know in your project descriptions if that's what you're looking to do. That would be very helpful. So when Rodney shows you the project description and where to put that in, is to be able to let us know if it's a complete rebuild and to what level. Like, is it going to the subsurface? Below that, are you building foundation? What does that look like? So those are some things that I do want you to be aware of for eligibility, but all of these things are specifically mentioned in the Second Amendment. So when you see either the statute related to it from the state statute or the Second Amendment, Section 3 is all about roadways. And then A through F are all about these elements here. So in every case with the Second Amendment, I try to reference it in each case. So if you want to go back and take a look at it, you've got it there. But each one of these improvements that you see here are specifically mentioned in the Second Amendment as being eligible for. Now, again, with some restrictions in some cases or other additional information that they need, but these are really your list of improvements that you're going off of. Submitting an application, I'm going to give you a quick update on this because there were a few changes that I wanted you to kind of see graphically before Rodney went into his process to showing you how you're filling these things out a little differently. You'll see in step 1, you've got a couple adjustments here where it's improvement type. So before, where we laid it out on roadway type and you had to make a selection there, now we're laying out all 14 of the improvement types, and you have your selection then with a subset coming off of traffic calming as well. We also ask in this particular year that you identify if you're the project is with the connecting facility. So essentially, if you're connecting a sidewalk, if you're filling in a gap, that's something that we need to know, as well as if your project is in a public school zone. So in step 1, that's one of the major differences that you'll see. Now, again, all of your applications are in there from your last go around. So we have, I think, roughly, I know it's over 100 applications. All of those are still saved within your database. So in some cases, it may take you less than 5 minutes to update an application, but we are asking for a little bit of additional information there. We also give you an opportunity to give us some information about public endorsement. What has happened relative to the project? Is it still endorsed by the public? Even if that's through a meeting or an engagement, we want to make sure that the public has seen it at this point. The other thing that we are looking at, and again, this is to be as part of our new MPO evaluation ranking process that we work with Monica on, we're looking to limit 3 submittals during the open application period. So each city would get 3 submissions that they would do for the year. So that's one of the efforts that we're looking at. So again, that should help you to really laser focus then your efforts in building the best 3 applications that you can submit. You don't have to submit any, but we're doing up to 3. The other thing I want to emphasize here too is that, oh, I see a question. Let me get through this real quick. But that one of our requirements though is before, just like last year, because about 75% of you who registered for this had gone through a training before and were directly involved. We have updated the password, so you'll have a new password for the points of contact to get into your database. Let me just see here really quick. No, so the question is do public endorsements need to be updated periodically? If so, how often? We see this as when you submit. So you can have an application that may set in the database for 5 years. You had a public endorsement, but at that point, we're going to ask that if you're going to resubmit it, if the application's gone where you haven't submitted it for 5 years, it would be nice to have something more time sensitive, more centered on the year that you're submitting it, but we would work with you on that. So there is a place for you to put a note there in the application. Is there a dollar limit for each project? No, there is not a dollar limit for each project. So it's just the number of applications itself. All right, so let me move that off to the side. Sorry, got too many windows here. All right, so the first place that I want to give you is your resources that are available to you, and you have 2 of them. Now, Rodney's going to take you through the My MCP portal, which is going to be all about developing and submitting the applications. But also importantly is we've started to structure it so you can follow all of these projects through time. So you have notes of how many times you've submitted it, what years you've submitted it, if a phase has been funded, to be aware that then you could, the next annual cycle, you could ask for funding at that point. So we're really making it a one-stop shop to where all of your information is going to be there, including notes when we go through our review process, if we had any questions. All of that is going to be kept for you so you can see and you can report to your elected officials what's happened to your applications, how they've progressed through time, which ones you've done, and how many. So this has become a very robust system that allows you to record keep as well. I did get another question about can there be an extension on the commission approval of the ROS? April 1 means our city will need to approve it by March. So the problem that we have with this is, yes, we can get some extension. However, we cannot submit a project on June 1st if we don't have that resolution of support, because we have no way of knowing whether that's occurred or not. So we are asking you to plan a little bit of ahead as it comes to that. But we worked with you all last year on this process where we gave you a little bit of an extension with that. We would love to have the resolution of support prior to you submitting the application, but we do understand it doesn't always match with your commissions. So we give a little bit of leeway there. But the important thing to note is that come June 1st, if we don't have that, it's hard to submit something to them because it's one of the checklists that they look at to make sure that a project is ready. So what I'm saying though is that don't send me something on May 31st and expect me to maybe get it in there. So the sooner you can do it, and the nice thing is you can always contact me, let me know the date, and there's a place within the application that you can have an expected date as to when you think you could do that. That's great for me because I actually put it on my calendar and then I follow up with you to make sure that that's occurred. So one of the things that I want to show you is the website. I know probably many of you are familiar with it already, but it is the one place that you can go to that we're constantly updating to help you through the process. So to do this, I need to go here and all right. So everybody should be able to see the website. Yes, I am still sharing. Good. Okay. So within the website itself, we've made a few updates to it so that way you can see it. I'll also point out in every case that you have access to the portal itself. Now, the portal and all of this will become available Monday, January 23rd. So on that day, you're going to all get an email, particularly the points of contact, but we're going to notify it through the news. So please, you'll see here the subscribe to news and event. If you haven't already, please subscribe. We've got probably about 175 subscribers at this point. So chances are you're probably already on that list, but we will send out a news item that says the portal is now open. And that at the same time too, our hope is that the new MPO ENR process, we will be publishing it at that point as well. So if you haven't subscribed, you always have that opportunity right here at the bottom. But the homepage is set up to just give you quick overviews. This has been updated to essentially list some of the improvements that are eligible for funding. You've got where you can get about the MPOs or the MCPs. But also importantly, one of the things that we've added that we think is really important is if your elected officials have questions, there's a site specifically for them as well as for you. So if you go to the elected official site, we've tried to streamline it to where there's information that they would find important. Right away, getting into what is the MPO's role as part of this process, but also their role. What are some of the expectations for them? So, you know, it's monitoring the website, it's providing resolutions of support, it's working with you all. If there are leverage funds that you want to do, making sure that you're getting your CIPs put together, getting those approved, so that way they see the process all together, as well as you'll see Brian's information here, so he's here to help you. if you want to ever invite him to any of your commission meetings to answer questions. And then this is a feature that I highly recommend for all of you. We do frequently ask questions that we get from elected officials, but also municipal staff. So we have the main questions that we get every year. So these were all the questions that we received this last year. And as we get more questions this year, we keep a record of them. That's why we ask you to type it in the question and answer. We also get correspondence from you. We group those, and then we put together the information. So that way, any frequently asked question is available to them, and we tailor that specifically for the user. So for municipal staff, your FAQs look a little different, but you've got your role, and then what your role is. We've got the statutes. It's about putting together the application. You've got my contact information. So if there's a direct need, as well as Maria, she schedules any one-on-one meetings to make sure that you're getting the service that you need. And as Brian said, our goal is, and so far we've hit it at 100%, is that we're back to you in 24 hours and getting that set up. Your FAQs are much larger. We get into questions about what's an independent cost estimate, what detail should they have. So all of those, and this continues to get updated each year, but these are all the ones that we received last year that were important from you all. So we've got that section. The other one too that I think is important, and again, this is why the subscription is helpful, is if there's any meetings that occur, they show up on there. If there's a Zoom connection or a registry, that's where you'll find that. So as we start to go through the process, you'll see these meetings coming up. The nice thing about that too is it also gives a record for you if you need to report back to your elected officials, hey, we met with them at this point, this was the training that they had. So it gives you a timeline for all of those pieces. The other one too is news. This is the other thing that I would hope that you would track, is we let you know if the portal's under maintenance. We let you know when the recommendations are out, when the period is wrapped up, when we're now accepting applications. If we get particularly questions related to it, we do that. So we're regularly updating the news so that way you're aware of what the latest and greatest is. The other piece too is the documents itself. So what we publish each year is the list of the recommendations and the rankings, but also the procedures. So this is the procedure from last year. You see it dated April 18th. So we're actually ahead of the game this year, where we do believe that when we meet with Monica on Wednesday, tomorrow, that it'll be the last cleanup that we do there. And then we have the Second Amendment. So this is where for that year, for that cycle, now we always show what actually got recommended. But as we start to produce materials, this is where you'll find those in the documents. And there's all kinds of filters that you can apply, checklists if you want to see if there's a procedure or something to help you out there. That's part of that process, as well as then the need for help. So we understand that you might need to have a one-on-one. This is a contact form. You fill this out just like any registration. Let us know what your issues are, and Maria sets up that meeting right away. So this is not just here on the need help, but this is also the bottom of the homepage. So keep track of this because we keep this updated. Now that we're starting the process, there's usually an update almost weekly up until we close it. But you'll see here is also the form here as well. So that's where all of that is. And then again, this is the one place that you can go to for the new MCP portal. Right now, if you click it, it's going to say that it's under maintenance. Again, all of this is going to become active and available to you January 23rd, and it will have both an email, an e-blast that goes out to the point of contacts, as well as a news item that will then get published on the site itself. So that is where we're at on, let me go back to here. And there we go. So those are the resources. So anytime, typically when we get questions, we might direct you to the website, but it's meant to really be there, and not just a way for you to communicate with us, but for you a way to also see a record of everything that's occurred, have a list of every ranking, every recommendation, every procedure that's been used, and then any documents that get produced there. So that was the live demonstration. At this point, we're actually ahead of schedule. So if no one's complaining, I think we can go ahead and start with the next section. Rodney, are you okay with that, with not taking a break?
Yes, I'm fine with it.
Okay, Very good. So then what I'm going to go into is a quick overview of the live demonstration. So what Rodney's going to take you through, and again, this is going through the portal, so that'll be active January 23rd, is he's first going to show you how do you delete an application. So in some cases, and again, remember this is a 30-year program, so we're also thinking in the future. So we know in some cases you may just have an application that you say, you know what, it's lost interest, or maybe this isn't the project, something else, a different urgency has come along. So we do give you that option. So he's going to show you how do you clean up your database, delete an application, how do you create a new application, how do you update existing applications? Because again, this portal is typically open to you 24/7, 365. We usually do about a month of maintenance. The end of December, we did it a little earlier this year, but he's going to show you how to update an application that's basically had received no funding, and then those that have actually had a phase funded. Because if you recall, last year was our first year. We had 8 projects that we were able to recommend that were new MCPs, which we were very excited about. So the ball is really rolling. So in so many ways, this is the start. This is the second year of this program as it was imagined. And like I said, I think we've really worked out a lot of the kinks. I think you'll be happy with what you're seeing here. Then we're going to look at how do you submit it. So once you've got your database all updated, you feel comfortable where your applications are, how do you submit your 3 applications? But then once you get them submitted, to get points, this is really important, is part of the Second Amendment, there are 2 areas where you can get additional points by selecting your highest priority new MCP, as well as if your community has adopted the land use policy from the Broward County, that can also give you points there too. So he's going to show you that once you have all that together, how can you help your applications from a point standpoint, and then how do you monitor your to-do list and your progress made? Because we've added now new filters that allow you to go right to the issues related to it. So we're really excited about some of these new features that we've added. We're hoping that it makes your job much easier. We also want to make sure that we're hearing from you, just like we did last year. What are some things that would help you get through this? So a lot of what you're seeing today is a result of the feedback that we got from you, and we're always grateful for that. So without any further ado, I'm going to turn it over to you, Rodney, so you can share your screen, and he's going to take you through all 6 or 7 of these elements.
Sounds good. Thank you. Let me.
So I.
Hold on. Here we go. Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can, Rodney. And if you can make it large, that I guess, is that as big as it goes, or fill the screen there? Yeah, there we go. Yep.
Is that good?
That is perfect.
All right.
Thank you.
Great. All right. Well, welcome to the demonstration portion of the training today. And as Todd mentioned, what we want to do is focus on introducing you to the workflows and tools involved in creating and submitting new MCP applications. The first of which is just to log into what we'll call the portal, the new MCPs application portal. And so that is your municipal sign-in. And so there, once you access the portal either through the main website, or there is a URL exclusively to the portal, which Todd also mentioned at mymcpsportal.org. So if you click the municipal sign-in button, you'll be transferred to your municipal login. So the idea is that all 29 participating municipalities in Broward County are already listed and in the system, and you'll be provided with a password that goes along with this, your municipality. And so basically there's one login per municipality. There's just one user. So just whenever you're using the system, just make sure you're not stepping on each other's toes. If you have multiple people using the system, generally just keep one person logged in at a time and using the system from that standpoint. So we also have a training login that we're going to be using throughout the course of this demonstration. So let me just log into the training. And again, if anyone has any questions, please put them in the chat and we'll try to answer them on the spot if we can. All right, so for those of you that were participating last year and are familiar with the interface from last year, we've changed it just a little bit where we've kind of divided it into two sections where we have what we call it the dashboard at the very top. It has some tabs that go along with it that include the priority project, the land use submission for the municipality, and a review key, and we'll touch on all of those, as well as the instructions, some general instructions. And then we also have this 2023 new MCP applications, which is a listing of existing applications that we have in the system, in this case for training. So whatever applications that you see will be specific to your municipality. So in this case, we have 3, and they were existing from the 2022 cycle. So those carry over to 2023, and they still exist in the system with all their information, so that while you still do have to go through all of the review steps that we'll take you through today, it still makes it that much easier because all your information is carried over in those projects. All right, just to go over a little bit about the table here. So this is a little bit different than last year as well, where we have the MPO ID in the first column, and that is the ID that's the Broward County and Broward MPO use as a reference ID for the project, and it's carried through for the life cycle of the project. So it might be something that you gets referenced, and you call it by project ID rather than project name at times. So just become familiar with that. That might be some terminology that might be used in the review process and other processes. You also have the project name. And then you have the review steps. So these are steps that kind of correspond to our instructions here. So our very kind of general instructions that we have is that the MCP application process is divided into 3 separate steps for information gathering, review, and approval before a new MCP application can be submitted. And that includes step 1, which is general information, step 2, which is commitment and support, and step 3, which is funding and implementation. So these 3 steps that are listed in the instructions are really referenced to these 1, 2, and 3 here. So these corresponding buttons and steps give you access to the data and the review and all of the actions that you would need for each step, right? And so going further with the instructions for each new MCP application step, enter the requested information and click the request review button at the bottom of the page. So that request review button, whenever we get there, will send off a request to the MCP review team for them to review the information, submit their review on it, which could be, yes, it's great, everything looks great. Or it could contain some additional information that might say, well, improve a few things about your application, or you're missing a little bit of detail here, so that it just improves your application in general, right? So the review steps are meant to say, put in some that stage of information, send it to the review team. They'll provide you some information that would improve or complete that portion of the application. And then you move on to the next step and to the next step. So it's meant to help you get through each step and complete your application the best that you can. So note that this year, the open period begins February 10th and closes on March 10th at 5 p.m. And that we are limiting the number of application submissions available per municipality to 3. So while you can have as many project applications listed in here as you would like, for this particular 2023 cycle per municipality, you can only submit 3 for funding. So that's new this year as well, that there is a limit on the number of applications that you can actually submit per municipality. Okay. All right, so let's just review this a little bit. So let's correspond a few things. I'm going to just hover over this general information. So again, this corresponds to the general information step here. And the tooltip will tell you the previous step must be completed before proceeding. So you cannot do anything with this step or the submit until you've completed all the steps. And this, once you've completed each step, the submit will become available, and then you can submit that particular project for ranking and recommendation. So we have a review key here. So basically this kind of helps you with the color code. So if you, let's say if you have 20 projects here, it can become a lot of information. So the color codes help you see where you are in terms of what input is required. And in this case, municipal input is required for all three. We also have added a new filter, as Todd mentioned, that allows you to both see all projects at once, and it also gives you a count of the number of projects that you have. So in this case, for the training, we just have 3 projects, but of course that will be specific to the municipality that's logged in. If you drop this down, you will see that you have action required, where essentially this corresponds to the municipal input required. So in this case, we have three applications where it's currently in the ball is in the court of the municipality to do an action. Now, if it was in the reviewer's hands, then it would say whatever the projects that are in the reviewer's hands, where they're performing a review. And I'm really kind of just waiting for the review step to complete, and then it comes back to me, to the municipality, to move on to the next step. You also have any submits that are available. So if you have a submit project that's available to submit, it will show you those. Any phases that were funded in previous years, any applications that meet that criteria, and also any that are submitted. So you see that it says 0 of 3. So the of 3 corresponds to how many actual submissions are available in this cycle, and that's 3, as we mentioned just a few minutes ago. And that 0 have been currently submitted. So you haven't submitted any, but you have 3 available, and that number will go up. It will say 1 of 3 or 2 of 3 and 3 of 3. And once you get to 3 of 3, things kind of shut off at that point, and the submits will not be available. Okay. All right, so let's go back to the instructions. And as Todd mentioned, one of the items that we would like to do is just remove a project. So as he mentioned, there could be multiple reasons for that. If it was funded through another mechanism, or it's no longer a viable project, whatever the case may be, we can just remove it. So we're going to remove this particular project we created, Hiatus Road Roadway Improvement Plan. And so we have this delete button where it says delete new MCP application. So we're going to click that. And we're prompted to confirm this, because a lot of what we're doing here, we want to make sure that when we hit a review step or we submit something for review, we want to just make sure that that's what you intend to do, and that you're kind of agreeing both that you are able as the authorized person to do it, and that it's consistent with the Second Amendment. So we want to make sure all of those things are true. So we ask you to click this agree, and click this notification that you want to submit, and then you can click agree and remove. And that project is then removed from your list, and you can see that everything kind of updates around it. You've been given a notification that the MCP has been successfully withdrawn. That's great. You can just close that and move forward. We're now down to 2 projects, right? And we have just 2 where action is required. So all of this updates whenever you make changes to your project listing and statuses change, et cetera. And we'll keep looking at that and examining it as we move forward. Okay, so the next step is to create a new application or new project. And so on our actions, we have the ability to create a new project here. So this hyperlink in this column will allow you to create a new application. All right. So our project that we want to create is, and this is our hypothetical project, to create a neighborhood traffic calming program in the Kimberly Boulevard area. And so what we want to do is enter some of the required project information. So as Todd mentioned earlier, we have a listing of improvement types, and this differs a little bit from last year. So just pay attention to some of the changes where it's all kind of grouped into a single list of eligible improvements, right? And that you can select more than one out of this. And so that's what we're going to do. So this is an improvement types include bicycle lanes. It includes drainage improvements, includes sidewalks, includes street lighting, and traffic calming. All right, so one of the items when we click traffic calming, it's going to ask for additional information relative to some of the calming measures that will apply to the project. So it could be all of these or just one of them. It's up to you to define, but it has to be at least one. So, so for this particular project, we have raised crosswalks and intersections, realigned intersections. We have speed humps and speed tables and traffic circles. All right, so that's our particular project. Of course, every project will be different, and just pay attention to some of these notifications where if you see a single star next to the improvement type.
And Rodney, we did get a question that asked what improvement type is roundabout installs. So you actually see, and it was very apropos, roundabouts is one of the items on the traffic calming measures. If there's ever a question though about how an improvement fits in, that's where the project description is. So thank you, Rodney.
Yeah, sure. All right, and then so 1 star here in this list means that you please see section 3 of the Second Amendment for general information requirements, eligibility, and funding restrictions. So just make sure that you're familiar with the Second Amendment and what you're doing is consistent with it. 2 stars, which is really, I think, just relative to our new roadway or bridge. It says this improvement may include a roadway or bridge that is a complete rebuild of an existing facility. So just note that that's an additional definition that you should consider when creating that particular type of improvement.
And Rodney, that is subject to a review by the Transportation Surtax General Counsel. So if we ever have questions, if you are marking that and you're letting us know that it's a complete rebuild, we will be working with Angela and the team just to make sure that it's meeting all the requirements. So we'll get ahead of that earlier.
Great. Okay, so and as Todd mentioned, one of the items, once you've defined the improvements that you want to implement as part of the application, provide a brief description of the project. So I would say that you want to be as complete as you can with this, with obviously within that 2,000 character maximum, and define the description as much as you can in terms of what's involved, and that helps us with our review, helps us bring everything together in terms of the project scope and setting the stage for it. So please be as descriptive as you can in that box. Okay, so the next question is, does the project have defined start and end points? And in this case, the answer is yes. So when we have that information, we have the facility name to and from. So in this case, the facility name is Kimberly Boulevard. So let me just copy and paste that in. It actually goes from Southwest 81st Street, or sorry, 81st Avenue to Southwest 71st Avenue. All right, so those are our extents as it relates to a to and a from and a facility. It could be the case where you don't have, it's more of an area, right? So it doesn't have a to and a from, it's more of an area. So if that's the case, then you would enter a description of the area boundaries that will be impacted. But I'll just switch back to our yes answer. All right, so here's a couple of new questions that are for 2023 that we've just added. So as you're doing, not just a new project creation, but when you're updating your existing projects, you will have to answer these questions in addition to everything you've already filled out. So does the project connect or fill portions of an existing facility? And in this case, the answer is no. And is the project in a school zone? And again, this one is a no. And these are just yes, no questions, so that you don't have to elaborate at all. Just make sure that you understand the intent of this and are able to answer it. All right, so the next item is upload an image file containing a map of the proposed project area. So this is just a browse to a JPEG or a PNG or a PDF, something like that, that would give us the proposed area. And it could be very detailed. It could be just a Google Maps, whatever you have available to you that would define the extent of the project is very helpful for us to put everything into context. Okay, so I think this one is, yeah, our traffic calming. So I have a project area defined in a PNG file format, an image file format. And so once I've selected it, it lists it here. And I can change that if I want to. But for right now, I'm going to leave it. And it doesn't get uploaded until we actually either save the draft or request review. So one of the most important parts of this is to select the phases requesting surtax funding. And so this has definitely changed this year. And so one of the changes is that the design build option for a phase is no longer available in our list. So we'll no longer be including that as part of the funding or the review and recommendation process. The other item is that only one phase will be available to submit per cycle, right? So even though you may have planning, design, and construction as part of your overall project, you would only be able to submit one of those per cycle. So you wouldn't submit all. And last year we were filling out all of the phases that you had entered, doing reviews on them, and then once you had completed all the information, then you would submit basically the project. But now we're going to be specific to a phase rather than the full project when we do a submit. So just be aware of that whenever you're creating these projects, is that we would love to have all of the information that you have available. If you have planning, design, and construction, you're planning to use those eventually in different phases within the MCP program, then please fill them out and have us look at them. But note that only one of them can be submitted as part of the 2023 cycle. All right, so for this one, we're going to select design as our only phase we're going to be entering this year. So we have a project point of contact information. This is just my information, but it's attached to the training. So basically, we have a list, a municipal lookup list that gets automatically populated into here per municipality. So whoever the point of contact person is will be automatically populated in this list and kind of saved with the project. And I would just say that if you have, a new point of contact that's changed over in the last few months and that you want to put in as your point of contact for your municipality, please let us know. You can email Brian directly. There's actually a link here for Brian's email that would create an email that you can send him and let him know that, who your point of contact information should be, so we can get that updated. Okay. So it looks like we're complete for the general information for this project. So we can hit a couple of things. So if we hit the save draft, what that will do is basically say that we've saved it. And let's say we're not really fully completed with this. There are a few items that we didn't know. So we had to, go find that information. It took an hour or two. We had to log back in, and then we want to enter it. So the save draft option allows you to do that without going through the review process just yet. So just so you know that there's a way to just save it without submitting or requesting a review.
Rodney, we did get a question.
Sure.
It is, if the city is in the process of design, can the city complete an application for construction, even if our design is not complete at the time of the application submittal? The design would be completed prior to the award. So the short answer is yes. You can absolutely do that. Just as a reminder, when we do a recommendation, it's for the 5th year of the 5-year plan. So there's plenty of time to do that. And that's why it was very important for us to make this adjustment, because in some cases we do have a few people that they want the option. So they'll fill out design and construction, but they may just be applying for construction depending on how their project ranks out, because they may go ahead and move forward with the design. So that's why we're giving you that flexibility. So absolutely, you can submit an application even if the design isn't done for construction, but just be aware that should you get recommended, as you start moving closer to the time frame in which you would be receiving that money through the budget, the map administrator is going to begin to ask you for additional information to ensure that the design is done and that it meets their standards. So I just want you to be aware of that. Thank you, Rodney.
Sure. I think there's one
Rodney,
more.
one more question. Sorry.
Yeah, that's
So
it.
if we have projects that were funded for planning design previously, applying them would be considered as one of the 3 projects we're allowed. Correct. So ultimately, and that's why it's important to have that filter, is because you're actually submitting a project by its phase. So let's say you've been funded, I would actually target those projects that you know have already been funded. So if they're earlier in the process, if you've gotten funding for design, which last year there were 8 projects that were recommended for design, you potentially could be ready for construction. So Rodney's built in a filter there to show you what's received money. So then I need to submit the fact that, hey, I'm interested in construction and I'm ready to go now. So that's why that flexibility is important.
Okay, great. All right, so let's set up our request review. So this is where we say we're completed with this section, the general information section. We filled everything out to the best of our ability, and we want to request a review from the MCP team on this information. So we just click the request review. And again, it's going to prompt you to confirm that you want to do this. So we're going to click agree and submit. And it also lets you know that you're going to be receiving emails, right? So whoever the point of contact information or point of contact is for the municipality will receive an email that this is a confirmation that this request went out, right? So once we hit agree and submit, you should see an email in your email box that comes from the Broward County MCP admin that is will confirm that this particular project was, submitted for review for general information, right? So, and it also will receive a confirmation here that it was submitted for general information review, right? Okay, so we have a couple of things that we would just want to show you here while we're here. So now we have our neighborhood traffic calming program north that we set up. And you'll notice that the review steps are still somewhat similar, but the new one we've created, the general information review, is in process, right? So you have the pop-up that it will kind of tell you what's happening along with for each one of these steps. You also have the review key again that could tell you that whenever the color is gray, the review is in process, and that you're kind of waiting for the MCP review team to finish the review before you can move on to step 2. So what I will do is in another browser window, I am going to log in as an MCP team, review team, and perform the review. So let me just do that. And so I'm going to approve this particular step 1, general information. So again, on the municipal side, I'm just going to refresh the page so that it will refresh my steps, right? So now, instead of having the review step on number one has been confirmed. And you are now on step 2, input, commitment, and support information. So again, this corresponds to commitment and support, or step 2 up here in the instructions. So we're now free to move on to step 2 and input the commitment and support information. But before we do that, I just want to back up to step 1 to say that, oh, sorry, okay. it does time out a little from time to time. So just bear with me here. Just log back in. Okay, so here's the project that we just created, or the general information page that we just submitted for our neighborhood traffic calming project, right? And so what you'll see is that it's read only, so you can't edit any of these values because it's been reviewed and you can't change it, right? It's past the review step, can't change it. You also see that at the bottom, you have the general information review from the MPO, that it was approved and any comments that they may have had. So you can also get to their comments as well once you re-enter that step, but you can't save it or change it. Okay, so now we're back to our main landing page for the training municipality. And so we're going to move on to step 2. Okay, so step 2 is all about commitment and support, and we're just going to run down the questions that are asked. So is the project located within a right-of-way that is owned or controlled by the municipality? And in this case, the answer is yes. So, so if it is, then it's fine. If it's not, then you need to upload an approval letter from the owner or controlling controlling entity of the right-of-way in which the project is proposed. All right, so that you need some other confirmation that you're able to actually do the work in this right-of-way. But in this case, it's owned by the municipality and it's fine. So one of the new questions that we have this year is the project endorsed by the public through outreach efforts? And we'll just answer this particular question with yes. And if so, you need to upload the supporting materials to show the endorsement of the project by the public. So this would be, whatever it is in terms of verification that you might have that in document form where you can upload that.
And I'm sorry, Rodney, if I can, we did get
Sure.
one more question that came in, and it was asked, could you explain a little more about the 3 project limit? You're recommending for the 5th year of the 5-year plan, but we would still need to use our 3 project slots to resubmit the projects that have already been included in years 2, 4, and 5. No, so that's what's important. So again, when you get, so for instance, last year was the first year that we actually had money that was available for new MCPs. There were 8 projects that were recommended, all of them for design. So that means that those design dollars are in that 5th year. Let me get that. Sorry, let me do that. Are in that 5th year. But construction is not automatically in the next year. That's part of your submittal process, because in some cases, what we've heard from some of the cities is it may take them a couple years to get design done. So they wouldn't want construction for the 2020 or 2028 year. They might need it for 2029. So no, it does not take away from your phase that's already in the plan. That's actually working through the process. It's if there is a next phase that you're looking at, so from design to construction, we need to know that you're interested in that, because we do have a few municipalities that have just wanted design money and that they were going to cover construction. So it allows us that opportunity. And then there's another quick question, Rodney. If the right-of-way is not fully owned by the municipality, however, letter of support from the owner to convey the property is available, is that acceptable to progression? Yes, and ultimately, because what we're looking for here is, in some cases in the past, we've had some projects that are either on FDOT right-of-way or Broward County right-of-way, and there wasn't the coordination between the two, and we didn't actually know that there hadn't occurred. So that's why we need to know that, hey, if you're looking for improvement that's within Broward County right-of-way or FDOT's right-of-way, or in some cases, if you're doing a multi-jurisdictional and you're working with another jurisdiction, we'd like to know that, hey, yes, we've got agreement on that. So that's why that's there. Sorry, Rodney, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so we're just referencing the public outreach endorsement file. In this case, it's a PDF. It can be any file type. It could be a Word doc or other file type as well. All right. So our next question: has the governing body approved a resolution of support for the project? And in this case, the answer is yes. And again, we're going to need to upload the resolution of support document, which we have here. Now notice that if the answer is no, that we're going to ask when is the expected date of the resolution of support will be available. So just have that available. If you know you don't have a resolution of support, just give us a time frame where you think it will be available.
And my hope and desire when you say that, Rodney, is like I said, for your project to move forward. And yes, so we just got a question of, can you use a previous resolution of support? Yes, you can. Now, if 5 years have passed or 10 years have passed, because remember, we're looking at this as a multi-year process. It would be nice to at least confirm that the resolution of support is still there. But as I was saying is, we need to have it by June 1st. So if you put, hey, we won't have it until summer or August, you're probably going to get a call from me, and we're going to try to work something out to say, hey, how do we get this? Because it's one of the checklists that the map administrator uses. Do they have that resolution of support? And it's very hard for us to move a project forward if we don't have that. So thank you, Rodney. But again, you can put any date there, but I'd love to see one before June 1st and not May 31st.
Right. Okay, so let's, we have one more question, two more questions.
We do, and I was just going to answer this one. So yes, if the commission has changed, you're still good with your resolution of support. At this particular point, we don't think that if your commission changes, you need to do have a brand new resolution of support. But frankly, it's something that we're monitoring, because remember, we're really just in the second year of having money. So I think that we will likely revisit this at some point, though, and try to determine after so much time, do we need to go back and ask for an updated resolution of support if you've had an application that really looks like it's starting to move forward, but it's a 10-year-old resolution. And then we have the question, if we resubmit a project, can we use the public outreach document that we'd previously used? Yes, you can. Like I said, our job is just to confirm it at that point. But I do like that you guys are asking the questions, because I would say that over the next year or two, this is going to be some of the polishing that we do, that we're going to try to give you some guidance to say, hey, if you start to get 5 years out, you know, we're going to start asking for an update. So it'll be one of the things that we probably look for future advancements. So thank you, Rodney.
Sure. All right, so I think we're at the step now where we can request a review for step 2, commitment and support. So I'm just going to request the review. Again, we'll need to confirm and agree and submit. And we will be notified both with this notification at the top of the screen, and an email will also go out. So, so notice too, now step 2 is commitment and support review is in process. And also, I'll just drop this down really quickly to show that where action is required, and remember, this is the municipality action is required. There are 2 projects that meet that criteria. Review and process, there is 1 project. So if we want to just filter and see where a review is in process, we can quickly do that. Or we want to see where an action is required for the municipality, then we can do that as well. So that's where this filtering becomes pretty handy, is to see where you have something that you can enter. You have a project that is in need of data entry. So that's where this becomes pretty handy. So I'm just going to switch back to all projects. And again, I'm going to switch over to my other screen and review step 2 for the neighborhood traffic calming projects. And 1 second. All right, so I'm going to refresh the screen here, and you notice that now step 2 has been completed. Commitment and support has been confirmed. So step 3 is now available, which is funding and implementation, which corresponds to our step 3 up here. And if we click on this, we will see that we get a list of phases, and whatever phases that were entered in general information are what's available here to be the data to be entered for that particular phase is available. All right, so we'll just enter the information for the design phase. Okay. Go to my cheat sheet. All right, so the first question is provide a cost of the project phase. So this is the overall project cost, right? It's not necessarily what's being requested, it's the overall total cost. And also the independent cost estimate, we'll need to upload a document for that. So we do have a cost estimate that's available in PDF format that I want to upload. The next question is provide amount of surtax funding requested. So in this case, we're going to request the full amount of the project. Now it could be a sub amount, right? So it might be just 50,000 or whatever the number might be. So it doesn't have to be the full amount of the phase. It could be partially funded from somewhere else. So, and this begs this question, will non-surtax funds be used to complete the project? In this case, it's no, but if you answer yes, it's going to ask, provide amount of non-surtax funding used. And so how much money from the outside of the surtax funding will be used? And what elements of the project will non-surtax funds be used for? So if you remember in our initial general information, we did select some of this information as part of our project. So we need to say what specifically this non-surtax funding is being used for. And so click off whichever ones, identify the source, if it's FDOT or another municipality, whatever the other funding source is, enter that here, and any commitment by the provider for the funds. Any documentation to that effect would be part of what you would be required to upload. All right, so I just wanted to go over that end where you are going to be using surtax funds to complete the project, or you're not going to. And we're going to enter no for that, for this particular design phase. So the next section is implementation plan, where we would upload a scope of work. So again, that's a document you would have, just be the scope of work for the design phase. The number of months needed to complete this phase of the project. And this is going to be 18 months. So we just enter 18 here. And what is the expected start date for this phase of the project? In this case, it's 2024. So it's just the year start date. That's all we need. Will a consultant be used to complete the project phase? And in this case, the answer is yes, a consultant will be used. Has the consultant already been selected? And yes, they have. So if they have been selected, then you need to upload documentation for the method used to acquire the consultant. All right, so we have that information available in a PDF.
And Rodney, in the past, we've gotten this question quite a bit. Essentially what this is just the procurement process. So if you have a published procurement process in which you acquire a consultant, that's really what they're looking for here, because the map administrator has to basically check that to make sure that they're following all the agreements and that they have a process in place. So sorry to interrupt. It's just, I know we've gotten that question a lot last year.
Yeah, totally fine. All right, so the next upload is documentation of consultant availability and qualifications. So again, we have that as well. And I think we're ready with this. So we filled out everything that's required, and we're going to request a review. And again, we're going to agree and submit, and we will receive an email when this goes out, when that action is delivered. So again, we'll see at the very top that our design phase has been successfully submitted for completeness review. So we can close that, and we see that it's now pending, right? So again, it's in the phase where it's being reviewed by the MPO review team. All right, and again, we're back to step 3, where it says funding and implementation review is in process. So we're very close to being complete. We just need a final review from the MCP review team, which I will do right now. Okay, so let's refresh this. And that's great. So what we've done is we've completed each step. So you can see that 1, 2, and 3 have all been completed and confirmed. And now once we've done that, the submit button is available. So our pop-up reads, the MCP application is ready to be submitted. Click the submit button to notify Broward County that the project is ready for evaluation and ranking. So great. So we're ready to submit, but I think we'll hold off on submit because we want to run through an update of an existing project. So that got us a brand new application for a brand new project that we wanted to put into the portal. But we already have a couple of other projects that are in here from the previous cycle. And we want to make sure those are up to date as well and gone through the review process. So we'll just do that on one of them. And I believe it's the Cypress Creek Road Improvements Phase 2. So the good thing about this is the data is retained and we can just use the data that's already been in. Okay, so let's update this. So I'm just going to start with input general information. All right, great. So from our previous submission, the data that we had entered is still in the system. And all we need to do is confirm it. So just make sure that all of this makes sense, what you've entered in previous cycles. And also any new questions will need to be answered. So does the project connect or fill portions of an existing facility? That is a new question for this cycle. So you will need to answer that. If you just leave it blank and you go directly to request review, it will tell you that you need to actually fill those in, right, before you can proceed. All right, so we'll just do that. We'll answer yes and yes to both of them. We do have a map as well that we can upload. So we have the Cypress Creek Road map too that we can upload and use for reference. Notice that the design and construction phase were in the previous cycle. So both of those are already checked off. And in this case, we're only going to submit on construction, but we'll include both of them in, right? We won't remove design. We want to leave it in there. So just make sure you're consistent with it. You can leave these in, but you can only submit on one in the end for this cycle. In future cycles, you can submit on the others. All right. So again, we're going to request review and we'll agree and submit. And I will go over to the reviewer side and approve this one. Okay. Okay, so let's refresh and we're on to step 2. And again, our information from last year is available. And this is a new question, so it hasn't been answered. So we'll just say yes. And actually, we'll say no to this one. And notice here that the date is a date that's from last year, right? So if you do have a resolution of support, now would be a place where you can enter that, or you can push the date out again. But just make sure if you do push the date out that it's within the realm of reason. So if it's going to be in February, that's fine. So again, we'll request to review and agree and submit. And our reviewers will do their work, verify everything is correct, and review this step 2. All right, and then we're on to step 3. And this step is our construction. So you see that we do have design in the system and we also have construction. We're really just going to focus on our construction phase.
Rodney, we did get a question asking, just to confirm, would the resubmit of this project count as one of our 3 submittals if design was already approved in the 5-year plan? Yes, if it's been, and I think you're going to take us through an example of this, Rodney, but yes, if you received funding for design and you're submitting for construction, that is one of your 3. That is absolutely true. And that's to help them to know that that is one of your priorities. Because by the way, if your project, if you have a phase that is within, so again, we had 8 last year that have design that went through the commission and that was funded and in the plan. There are, per the Second Amendment, additional points that you get for being in the plan. So it really behooves you to monitor these. And then when you feel you're ready for construction, because like I said, if it took you 24 months to design, you may not do it that next year, but you'd want to do it the next year. You absolutely want to submit, and that counts towards one of your submittals. All right, and then we had one quick question. Please go over in this question, being able to indicate 2 phases, please, but funded 1. So again, if you have it funded, you're going to see in an example that we've got one of these projects that have design funding. So what I want you to be aware of is if you've received no funding, I would suggest you go with whatever is the most current one that you want to go to. So like in this case, it is a little strange because we're going for construction, not design, although we put that phase in there. It's what will you have prepared for that year, the 5th year of the 5-year plan that you'd like to move forward with. And like I said, so if you have design in a previous year, that's great. It doesn't change anything about that. This is for this year. So you submit for that phase that you're interested in. So again, we suggest that in most cases, if you've got design, you keep monitoring that, because that next year or maybe the next 2 cycles, you're going to want to submit for construction.
Yes, and we will look at one of those where that's the case. Okay, so let's proceed with our construction, where this is a previous submittal, right? So this is from last year where it was completely filled out. So we already have all the information filled in, all the documents have been uploaded that we need. And we're, in this case, we're assuming everything is up to date, but for your work, you need to just make sure. And, basically any of these documents can be downloaded as well, so that if you're not sure what's actually in a document, you can download it, take a look at it, and if it needs to be updated, just re-upload another document that would be, the more up-to-date document. So that's what these downloads are for, by each one of these, that you can actually access these documents and, make sure that they're current. Okay, so everything looks to be the way it should be. I will note too that for construction, it's not the same as design in terms of the input that we're asking, right? Because there are some elements of construction where we need some justification. In this case, for lighting, was part of the original general information that that was selected. So if you've selected lighting as one of the improvement types, then it's going to ask some additional information and some documentation relative to that lighting, right? So whatever you fill out on the main general information form for the improvement type, that may be specific to what there is asked whenever you fill out the, especially the construction phase information. All right, so let's request review and agree. And again, we're going to agree and submit. And notice that it's pending. So again, this is in the review process. We'll just go back to our main interface. See, it's also pending here, and I will go put on my reviewer hat and review. All right, great. And then we'll refresh this page. And now the submit button is available again, right? So now we have 2 projects where submit is available. Notice that you can also go in here and you'll see that this one has been approved. This construction phase has been approved, but you can still edit the design if you want to, right? So it's just leaving it open for you. If you want to edit that, you can, even though this has been approved, and you're probably just going to cycle this approved construction phase through and make that your part of your submittal. You can still edit this phase if you want to.
Now, Rodney, if I may, and I think because of some of the questions that we'd received, I would suggest, so if you've got a project, a new MCP, and you're going to look for design and construction, we do recommend, and I know we're doing a reverse here, we've got a phase for design, but in most cases, what our suggestion for you is give us both of the information, because it lets us know that you've got something coming. So even if you're just going to submit for design, because you can only submit for one phase, because if you don't submit for design, you're going to only get the money for construction with that. So you want to try to follow the critical path as much as possible. But if you're doing design and you know you're going to do construction, we would recommend that you at least get your application prepared, get the information in there, as much information as you can possible, because that gives the map administrator an idea to say, oh, if this gets funded for design in this year, we know that we're going to have construction coming up, and we've got the information there, so that way we can get ahead of the game and get any questions answered right away.
Okay. All right. So great. So I'll just kind of demonstrate a couple of things here. One is that in our new actions or status, we have 2 submits that are available, 1 review in process, and the action required is at 2. So there's, kind of multiple things going on here, and we might want to filter to just those that where a submit is available. So here are 2 projects where a submit is available, and we're going to submit them both. So I'm going to go ahead and submit Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program North. And what we'll ask you to do is select a phase. Even if there's only 1 phase, we're just going to say, please confirm that this is the phase that you want to submit. And again, we'll click agree and submit and confirm that we want to submit this particular phase for this particular project, and click the button. And now it's that submit is, go to all projects. We can see that this particular project application is complete. The new MCP application submitted for evaluation and ranking. So it says complete, and now we know that one is complete and submitted for this cycle. All right, so we are also going to submit our new Cypress Creek Road Improvements Phase 2. So we'll hit the submit button there. Again, we will select a phase, and because only construction has been reviewed and approved, then construction is available here as a selection, and we will hit agree and submit. And again, we have another complete project. So now both Cypress Creek Road Improvements Phase 2 and Neighborhood Traffic Calming Program North are complete. And if we drop down our listing, we see that we have 2 of 3 that are submitted. So we've submitted 2 of the total 3, and it tells us that, and that we have 1 where action is required. We also see that we have 1 where phases are funded, right? So if you want to look through your projects to see which ones have been funded in a previous year, right? So in this case, our Cypress Creek Road Extension project, the design phase was funded in a previous year, but we want to add construction to it, right? So if we go into our general information, we can see that we have our information from last year that's still in the system. We still need to answer a couple of questions here, which we can do. We can say, does the project connect or fill portions of an existing facility? Yes, it does. Is it in a school zone? And in this case, yes, it is. If we want to upload a map of the project area, we can. But the important part here is that the design phase is grayed out. It says that it was funded in 2022. So that means that you have to proceed with another phase. You can't just move on from here without selecting construction, basically, or planning, but it would be construction. And so if I try to move on from here and I go to request review, it's going to say, please select at least 1 project phase for surtax funding, which means that we need to select construction, and then we'll be able to move through. All right, so again, we're in the review process for step 1. And I'll go put my reviewer hat on. Okay, we'll close this out. And we're on to step 2 for input, commitment, and support information. So I will just answer some of the most expeditious answers to this. Is the project located within the right-of-way that is owned or controlled by a municipality? Yes. Is the project endorsed by the public through outreach efforts? In this case, no, but we can change that if we need to going forward. Has the governing body approved a resolution of support? No, but we'll give a date when they will. So that will be, in mid-February. And we'll request a review. All right, so we'll agree and submit. And again, it'll go over to the review team. And we'll review on this side. All right, so let's refresh. And great, so we're on to step 3. Now, what is interesting here is that you will see that the design phase, and I'm sorry, these numbers are low. We were kind of testing data. It's probably would be more than $50. So, but it says that it's funded, right? So what that means is that the design phase is kind of available for you to view, and you can even click on it and you can go and look at all the information and download any files, but you can't edit it in any way because that is all the information that was submitted when it was funded, right? So it's basically read-only, but you could still then go in and edit the construction phase, put all your information in for construction, submit it, and then that would be another project that would be part of your submissions, right? So it's the same project, just a different phase that is for this cycle's funding, right? Okay, so I'll skip the part where we go and enter all the information. We've kind of done that already. What I'll do then is go on to the priority project, right? So we mentioned this at the outset where you can enter a priority project that is your highest priority. You would then receive additional points on this particular project depending on the criteria involved. But its setting it is very easy. So once you have at least 2 projects submitted, you can set the priority project. So it's just going to, again, be a confirmation. And this is where we would probably pick the Cypress Creek Road Improvements Phase 2, is that has some construction involved. Even actually, if we submitted our other one with the previous funding for design, and we were actually submitting on construction, that would be a good one to submit as our highest priority because we know it's already a pretty highly ranked project, and it would be just better odds at it getting funded in the future. All right, so for right now, we'll just select the Cypress Creek Road Improvements, set the priority project, and then that is the project that is considered to be the highest priority project. And you can change this, right? So if as you're going through before the once the application period ends in March, you can't change it, but up until that point, you can change it at any time. The other item is the land use. So where the Broward County Land Use Policy adoption, has your commission adopted and implemented Broward County Land Use Policy 2.16.4? And I know for a lot of you, this isn't the case. So if you haven't done it, then the answer would just be no, and you would hit save, and that's it, right? But if you have adopted it, then you need to upload the adoption document. And I'm just going to click a file. And then once you've selected that file, you hit this upload a adoption document button. And it's going to say land use adoption form updated successfully. And from that point on, whenever you come in, this is the document. Your answers will be saved, and you can download this document if you want to. But this is the confirmation that they're looking for those additional points that you've adopted the Broward County Land Use Policy. And I think that's it, Todd, as far as all the items we wanted to cover. And if there's anything else that anyone has questions on or wants additional clarification, we can obviously answer questions now, but we are going to be available to you throughout the process. If you have any specific questions as you're rolling through any of this, The review team is there to answer those questions, and we can, obviously, if anything goes wrong with the website, we can update it and fix it, or, if you have any issues, you can either email the MCP team directly, or there is a link at the bottom that says report new MCPs application portal issues. And that's an email that will go to Todd and myself and Brian that will let us know of any issues, so that you can put some additional detail about what happened, and then we can go about fixing it for you.
Okay. Oh, there we go. Thank you, Rodney. We don't have any additional questions yet. So at this point, I will share my screen. Screen 2. Yes. And come back to here. And there we go. All right. So now that we've gone through the demonstration of creating an application, adjusting them, submitting them, as Rodney said, we're always available. I do have a question. By chance, do you have any pertinent dates as to the ranking will be announced, commission meeting oversight board after the June? So at this point, no, because that turns into their process. So the important thing to note here now, when we get the information, we're obviously happy to share it. But once we recommend the projects on June 1st, even if there's some updates, the ball is no longer in our court at that point. Then it goes to the oversight committee that does their evaluations, and then the Broward County Commission. So that can change over time. So that's something that you'll want to watch the MAP website for those dates, because our period really ends June 1st. I don't want to say that we just throw our hands up in the air, but we celebrate, because at that point, after working with all of you to get your applications in, that ends our biggest part of the job, and it really transfers over to the MAP administrator at that point. So that's where those dates come from. But again, we're always happy to share once we hear from them, but it's really the MAP administrator that you want to follow up at that point. So let me get to the next one. So at that point, are there any other questions that you have for us for this group based on everything that we've gone over? Now, again, I want to remind you that you'll be hearing on Monday, all the points of contact we'll be sending out, because again, we don't have that final confirmation from Monica on the process, but we do hope to have that. That will then be put on the website likely that Monday, although the website and the portal will be opened up to you on the 23rd. So at least you can get in there, start working on your applications, make sure that you reach out to Brian to get your password, and away we go. But are there any other questions that you have for what we've shown you today? I'll give it just a minute. So if anybody's typing. And then I'll bring up the last slide. So the last slide is kind of the next what's up. And tomorrow we'd still suggest visit the website, start familiarizing yourself with the information that's there. Again, this is updated regularly. And now that we're starting the process, I would almost check it weekly, because now if you're subscribing, you're going to be fine, because anytime that we do an event or we do the news, you're immediately going to get an update through your email that we've done so. But I would suggest that you look at it, get a feel for it, see where the information is. And in particular, I would highly recommend look through all the FAQs that we got last year, because there were quite a few of them. So go to your page for municipal staff, take a look at those FAQs and the answers that we give, and then any kind of follow-up. And then if you need to set up a meeting, we're happy to do it. Before the 23rd, contact Brian, get your password. I've got a question. If all our previous projects are stored and we choose 3, the next year when the portal opens again, will only the 3 submitted projects be available, or will all the original submitted project information be stored in the system? It's all there. The nice thing about this system is actually everything that you have, whether you've submitted it or not. So when you log in this year, all of your previous applications are there. So it keeps everything unless you delete it. So that's why Rodney started with, here's how you delete an application. So if you've lost interest in a project, you can delete it. But if you don't delete it, It is all there. Every bit of information is there, including our notes from the review. You will have that at your disposal. So it is set for a true database management system that you always have access to your information. But then after the 23rd, you get your portal password, then it's time to start developing or refining your new MCPs. Now, again, because based on the question last time, this last question that we just got, there's over 100 applications, including the 8 that were funded, but the other projects that were funded as well, or unfunded as well. So all of your information from last year is there. So in some cases, if you know that the projects that you're interested in that didn't get funded last year, you're going to be submitting, this process is going to be really easy for you because there's only a few little areas that we ask for you to give us some additional information. You will be able to move through this process very quickly, but everything is stored there for you. So with that, that wraps up, and we did gain 20 minutes, unless there are any other questions. We'll give it just a few minutes here, and then Brian, I don't know if you have any closing remarks.
No, I think it went well last time. We heard suggestions from you all on how to make it better, and we tried to integrate that and make it more inclusive. And so I think the program is coming along nicely, and we're always open to suggestions. If there's something that's on your mind that you think that we haven't addressed, hey, our feelings are never going to be hurt by trying to make improvements to the program that benefit all of us. So thank you very much for your time today, and everybody enjoy the last 20 minutes back of your own free time.